best way forward. Job shares become quite significant in Australia. We've all heard the concept of FTE, full-time employee. It can be made up of more than one person. And you can job share, where you can have somebody saying, I prefer mornings, and somebody saying, I prefer afternoons. You know what? Together they make one FTE. You can bring in workforces, you can have workforces. There's a big thrust at the moment, certainly in Australia and around the world, to work from home agents. And the reason they're doing that is when you suddenly have the load that you weren't expecting, you can have people come on board. It also drops things like the need for premises and all those sorts of things. But being more accepting, being more willing to work with the workforce, as opposed to define and depict what they have to do, generates a better result. Did that answer your question?
It does. I just have one comment. Where were you 20 years ago when I was in the aviation industry? Why? Thank you.
Another question.
Yep. Coming to you in a second.
So, in line with that, sir, so what are kind of expertise that you usually encounter, more than just the BPO industries? What are the industries that that you're willing want to engage with also?
So, that's a really interesting question. And earlier on I said that I am chairman of the board of the Australian Contact Centre Industry. Now here's you have your own contact centre industry as such here, right? Called BPAP, CCAP. Yep. Here's a fun fact. There is no contact centre industry. Says the chairman of the board for the Australian Contact Centre Industry. There is no contact centre industry. Why? Because you go to the banks and you go to their contact centres and you say, are you in the contact centre industry or are you in the banking industry? And they'll tell you we're banking. You go to insurance, they'll say, we're in the insurance. You go to BPO and they say, we're in the BPO industry. You go to leisure, go to Qantas and they say, we're in the airline business. Go to Philippine Airlines, we're in the airline business. They're not in the contact centre business, but it is very much an industry. So, we're a mismatch in many ways, and the reason it's considered an industry is because we all try and generate the same outputs for all of our customers. And at the end of the day, whether they're buying an airline ticket or they're buying some money out of the bank, they all want the same sort of service. I don't think I completely answered your question, but
Thank you so much.
can we have?
Just one.
Sorry, one more. Hogging the microphone a bit. That's okay. We'll get to you.
Just one question. Sean, I'd like to know if Call Design has ever partnered with or worked with the Philippine government, like the Department of Labor and Employment.
We're hugging the microphone.
Have we ever partnered with Department of Labour and Employment? Well, we do what they tell us to. We fully, so we haven't partnered with them and advised them. We've been running under the radar for
So
10
we could
years.
change our system. Just
We've changed the system. We've been running under the radar because as
Like
a
work
company
schedule.
called Time, decided that we would bring our, at the time we called it Centre of Excellence, but we bring our help desk and we'd find these intelligent people, clever people, funny people, and we would bring them together and we would help all of our customers around the world. And we've been doing that for 11 years, but we've been doing it really successfully. When we're back in head office and we sat and thought about this, we thought, man, we got this amazing resource and we're keeping it to ourselves. We're being a little selfish. Let's do something about that. So in many ways we are launching. Can we help the Philippine government? You betcha. Come talk to us. But fixing all of the things that you might want to fix, Takes a couple of weeks. So, do we have some questions from over here?
That's what our president said.
Hey, how you doing? I'm going to take you through a slide deck. I'm not one of those people that reads word for word, so I will do my best to take you through. There's a couple of key points here, and Cess started us on this when she says that we're now bringing services here into the Philippines. We are, absolutely we are, and we're launching these today. But we are actually taking these services around the globe, and there's a very real reason why we're doing this. And I'm going to get to some of that when we talk about what we're seeing in the market and why this is important. And then I'll talk a little bit about why it's really important here, given the market that you have here is such, contact centers, BPO, such an important part of the business culture here. I don't know many countries that I would visit, and I do visit a fair amount. I don't know many where most of the politicians can tell you what percentage the BPO market represents within their GDP. But you get that here. People really get that. They understand how important that is. And having that link back into the people at the very top is so vitally important. So we'll talk a little bit about what we're seeing and why we think this is such an important move, not just for core design, but also for the market, because we're seeing some convergence in the market, both in the digital world and in the contact center, the BPO world. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go on. So it's going to come over time. I'll try and stay in one place. So Cess talked us a little bit through our story, and we have been around for 20 years. This is our 20th year anniversary. In fact, this Friday, that very raucous table you could all hear at the back talking earlier on, that's the Core Design crew. They will be talking, they will be joining me in celebrating our 20th year, because we think that's an important celebration, right? Not many companies actually start off as small companies and work their way up to achieving that goal. We have been predominantly and uniquely focused on the contact center and the BPO market, specifically in the world of optimization. So until now, we've never really talked about being that contact center, that BPO for people. We do now, it's part of our service offering that we bring to the market. But we do that because we see a gap, we see a hole in the market. But what we are about is ensuring that the BPOs, the way that they run, whether we're selling technology, whether we're selling advice, or whether we're doing it for them, we want them to be the most optimized they can be. There's a very real reason why that's important. I'll come to that very shortly. We've been aligned in this approach for 20 years, and for 20 years we've continued to grow. We now have offices not just here in Manila, but as Cess said, we are headquartered out of Sydney, Australia, where the first two members, the founding members of the organisation, like myself, came from IBM. There are now 3 owners in the business, but we have offices in Melbourne, in Sydney, in Manila, obviously, Barcelona, and in Nashville. So we've taken these services, we continue to grow, and it's always a challenge. Certainly as a business owner, where do you go next? What are your interests? Where are you going to head to next? And the market for what we're talking about is so vast. Try and understand and do that very well. So if we could move on. We're here talking about workforce optimization. And for core design, we believe that workforce optimization is the core of everything that BPOs and contact centers do, because it doesn't just talk about, in this case, workforce management, having the right people in the right place at the right time with the right skills. It talks about how do you constantly improve what it is that the organisations such as BPOs, such as contact centres, how do you constantly improve them so that they are being more efficient, and in being more efficient can improve their productivity, improve their customer service. And that's what the workforce optimization loop does for us. It talks about having the right people in the right place, making sure that they're delivering. You've all rang into contact centres where they say this call will be recorded. It's one part of the quality process to ensure that the service that you're getting as a customer lives up to the corporate standards. And that's part of the solution set that we bring to the market. People don't join a company and automatically understand their products. They constantly have to learn. Companies involved. Understanding how to manage that knowledge is important, especially when you think about you've got the right people. They need to, their quality may be a little low, so you've got to try and bring up their quality, use a bit of knowledge management, and then measure that performance. As human beings, we love to know when we're doing well, we love to know when we're not doing well. Okay, we may not love to know, but we want to know, because we can't improve if we don't do that. The last part of the equation here is what we call load management. And many years ago, before I had Go Faster stripes on the side of my head, load management was all about call volume. But in today's society, and I look around here and I see a lot of people that are not as old and as grey as I am. It's not just about making a telephone call. In fact, my own son refuses to pick up the phone and call somebody. He'll text, he'll Instagram, he'll do something. He won't make it. It's really important. I need to get hold of him. He'll text him. It's like, make a call. Something like that. So load management today in contact centers is about how many different channels you offer to your business. When we think of contact centers, historically we still very much think today about call centers. Yeah, we go and see them, lots of people sitting there answering telephone, headset on. In Australia, I'll give you an example. In Australia, the average number of channels per transaction, think about not just somebody wanting information, per transaction that somebody has with a business, the average number is 9. 9 separate channels that people will have gone to in order to get the information, arm themselves, be prepared, and complete the transaction. And that's because they'll look at Facebook, they'll look at the website, they might visit, they might look at some print media, they'll read up, they'll arm themselves, they'll be using. All of these channels need to be managed, and contact centers are getting better and better at doing that, both in the back office and in the primary voice industry. So our solutions not only bring the contact center solutions to market, but it brings all of these components. We do this. Competitive edge specifically is about bringing these services as a solution as a service. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a moment. So these are the components that we've just been talking through and working our way through. I'm going to talk a little bit about why we bring them as a service very shortly. For us, it's not about just selling technology. It's never been about selling technology, because if there's no defined benefit, people can't see their way to that benefit. If they can't understand what they're going to get, where the benefits are, then there's no solution from us. It's about improving their staff retention. I know some people here. I was talking to some of you earlier. You have a particular bent on lifestyle, on technology, and on business. For us, understanding how you drive and manage that work-life balance is so very, very important. Because nobody just goes to work. I might, but nobody tends to go to work because they just want to go to work. People go to work because they want to fund their lifestyle. It's what you're all doing here now. Some of you are passionate about it, but you're all doing it because you want to fund your lifestyle. So having that balance between when I work, how I work, and making it fit my lifestyle is so important, especially in today's society, especially with the younger crew that are coming through, because they're more ready to say, that doesn't work for me. I want to do things my way. So, I'll take this up. So workforce management as a service. Things have been changing. Things have been changing in the business world. When I first started out in the business world, all those years ago, it was simple. People wanted technology, they would build a business case, they'd come and talk to a company like mine, they'd talk to a big company like IBM, and they'd say, I want this technology, and they'd put out an RFP, and they'd implement this technology. There's a certain amount of time that it takes, and it also takes a lot of money. Right? So you've got to find the money up front, and then they've got to deliver against that business case. But then we see the internet becomes very strong, and with the cloud delivery of service becomes very strong. In fact, some of the people here today are actually delivering their journalist benefits back over the internet. Right? Your bloggers, you have online capabilities. Businesses have been slow to take this up, but they have definitely started to take it up. And the trend is very much, as you're aware, going towards buying technology on an as you need it, as you want to acquire, as you want to utilize it basis. But we also saw that there's some fundamental things that still are missing in the market today. Now, I'll talk specifically about workforce management here. So workforce management, back to my first piece, right people, right place, right time, right skill. It's a difficult balancing act. And it's one that can drive such important benefits, because if you think about the number of calls, we just talk about calls, or any type of phone, whether it's Facebook, whether it's email, you want to respond to those customers in the most, in the fastest way possible, but the most economic way possible. So, if you don't manage that load, you've just got to keep bringing people on. The most expensive part of the contact center today, and has been for years, is its human resource. Yeah. So the more you bring on, the more it costs you. Yeah? It's a fairly simple equation. So managing that, making sure that you understand when is the right time to bring them on. How do you give them what they're looking for? How do you keep them engaged? Because nobody wants to work at 3 o'clock in the morning for 3 months at a time. So how do you keep them engaged? Because every time you lose somebody, you've got to go through that process of bringing somebody new on. Whereas it might take 5 or 6 weeks to put them on the desk, it could take 6 months to make them fully competent. There's a cost involved in that. And part of the cost is real, part of the cost is perceived as in customer experience. So, what's happening in the market? Technology is becoming cheaper because people can now buy technology when and how they want to use it. They don't have to pay for it up front. Capital expense is disappearing. Operational expense is prevalent. Pay-as-you-go models. So now we can get technology so much more easily. We can write the business cases because you can start using the technology. If you don't want to use it, turn it off. You haven't got a sunken cost of it, however many million pesos, however many $1 million. So that means your total cost of ownership. By total cost of ownership, I'm talking about what does it cost you, not just to own technology, but to run the technology, to put it on servers, to manage the technology through the IT workload. Somebody I was talking to earlier used to be an IT guru in an organization. That costs money. But then what about using that technology? That costs you money too. People, investing in people, continuously training them, making sure that they can deliver the values that you get from that. So what we're seeing is technology is becoming cheaper, but the cost of ownership isn't dropping anywhere near as fast. And that's an important point. As I said before, people remain the single largest expense. So increasing the need for efficiency, as everything else starts to drop, you need to get more and more efficient, because essentially what we're talking about is making people more efficient, making them more productive. Technology is not a silver bullet. It's never been a silver bullet to call design. It's an enabler. It's an enabler to business. So something that we need to focus on as we start to deliver on our promise. So attrition through the lack of engagement. Just talked about it a second ago. You bring somebody on, they stay for a year, they disappear, you've just lost all that investment you have in somebody. In a 1,000-seat contact center, not such a big issue, right? Not such a big issue. You have a 50-seat contact center, you lose one person, you've lost 1/50 of your knowledge. That starts to become significant. As pressure goes up, we have specialist staff. Workforce management people are, by every sense of the word, specialists at what they do. They're the people that will tell you need 0.5 of a person scheduled on a particular shift, and how you get 0.5 of a person, we're good at telling you how you do that. We see, it says most evident within small centres, and in Australia that's very true, but we see that across the globe, the requirement on workforce management and the skills that they hold, the more you invest in them, the more valuable they become on the market. So workforce management as a skill is increasing in its cost, so increasing the costs to a business. So then they say, oh, I don't want to invest so much in that. If I don't invest so much, I'm not going to lose so much. But if you don't invest as much, you don't get the benefit. So there's this balancing act going on. And we've seen that happening in Australia, we've seen that happening here in the Philippines, we've seen that happening literally everywhere around the world. And that is that people have the tools, but they don't have the fundamental knowledge. So some time ago, we brought out some management classes, and we would take people, we give them a pen, a paper, and a calculator, and we teach them how to do workforce management from the ground up. Take about 3 days, have to pass the test. No technology, calculator thing going on. And the improvements that we saw that they would get in their businesses were quite significant. But that doesn't translate back to business, corporate Australia, corporate around the world in general, because there's still this fear of putting that much energy, that much money, that much investment into it. So we see attrition both in the staff on the desks causing extra cost. We see attrition in the specialist areas keeping the knowledge down. We see that the workforce management industry knowledge is generally around the globe below par, below expectation. And that's something we said we need to fix, because not only because we're a technology company, we want you to be doing things the right way, because it's really important. It's how businesses get that secret sauce that they need to make themselves better. So if we keep moving on. We see that, as I said, old habits are dying hard. When we look at what people are doing to generate these benefits, we see them using Excel. We all know what Excel is. If we go through university, whatever, people use Excel to try and do workforce planning. The organisations that we would work with, we specifically focus with Aspect. But there are others in the marketplace. They spend millions and millions of dollars a year investing in their technology. And people try and replicate that using a $500 package. You can see that there's a gap, right? Not just in the amount that it costs to develop it, the amount of effort that goes into making sure that it's correct. Businesses need more efficiency. Not telling you anything you don't know here. All of your readers will be telling everybody that money's getting harder to come by. They've got to be more careful about where they invest their money. So they've got to be more efficient. Single largest expense in a contact center? Human capital, human people. So they need to focus very much on the efficiency. Inflexibility is driving attrition. This one kills me. I went to a place only yesterday and they say we do 4 shifts. Those 4 shifts are set here, here, here. There's no work-life balance. Don't ask people when they want to work. Yet today's society, certainly the younger people coming through, they'll tell you when they want to work. And they'll work hard for you when they're ready. But what happens, and we see this a lot, is people try and they want to go do something, a family activity, it's a day, it's a night out, and they're supposed to be working. They'll try and move the shift, they can't move the shift, they'll just take a sick. They'll just call in sick. That costs money, somebody else has got to cover that shift, somebody else has got to pay overtime, the customer doesn't get answered quite as quickly as they should do. So poor practices are reducing the gains that companies get. Straight out. Can't get the benefit because they don't have the skills in the workforce management practitioners. They're not using the right tools and they're losing people, which is increasing the cost, which is reducing the capability to get back to the workforce the workforce optimization cycle. What you want to do is keep taking people through that cycle, improving them, making them better, keep them there longer. Keep moving on. So, companies still unable to access all of the benefits of the workforce optimization. Main barrier remains the resource knowledge. It's very difficult to retain experienced staff, especially when the market's starting to pay more and more for those people. So the more you invest, the more experience they become, the easier they become to move to another place. So, reduced efficiency, increased cost, not a great cycle for businesses, certainly not in a business environment like the Philippines where it's such an important part of the GDP. So, what are we doing about it? This is where what we're launching today comes into play. When I was thinking about this back in the development phase, the team that I was working with, we sat down and we thought about this, and a lot of our experienced staff, you can see some of them sitting in the back of the room, a lot of our experienced staff, I could put them in to a company and they could take the role of the workforce manager, the person at the top. I could also put them in and they could be a real-time analyst, they could be a forecaster, a scheduler. So the same person could do any of those roles. So we stopped and thought about it for a while. I thought, well, if that's the case, surely we could change the paradigm. Because most contact centers today have a hierarchical approach. Workforce manager, in business today, it's the same way. We wanted to do it slightly differently. We want some expertise in the doing roles, but we wanted people that could consult. And in any one workforce management team, workforce optimization team, the person you pay the most for spends a small part of their time advising and the rest of the time doing. Quite simply, you don't need to pay for that type of skill to be only advising 20% of the time. You only want to pay for that when you need it. So we changed the paradigm. We significantly changed the paradigm. We have consulting roles, we have doing roles. So you only access, a bit like pay on demand, right? Same concept. So we match that, the role to fit that company profile. Small centres, and this is very true in Australia, also true here, funny enough. I recently was judging contact centres in southern China and Hong Kong. Part of my life and my role outside of call design is I'm chairman of the board for the Australian contact centre industry, and I get invited to other countries to speak. I get invited to other countries to do other things. In this particular case, I was asked to do some judging. I was quite surprised that even though I was going to China, I was still seeing 20-seat contact centres. I just thought everything in China, very, very generous. I thought everything in China was just huge. It's not. Well, it's very much the same profile as we're talking about here. So, but whereas they need that advice, they don't need to spend so much money on having somebody there, and then finding it very difficult to keep them. Larger centres need reflect. Larger centres need a little bit more complexity and a little bit more strategy. And then you get to the enterprise centres where you need to focus a lot on strategy and a lot on complexity. So distributing that workload and being able to do that by using the team that we have here in which is an incredibly experienced team when it comes to workforce management. Growing that team and being able to distribute that capability around the world was something that we decided to explore. So, next one, Mark. So we're leveraging our knowledge in workforce, so we're no longer just a technology supplier. We know workforce in and out. We understand workforce. So we understand the practice. There's three things in any business, right? People, process, technology. We've got the technology, we understand that. We understand process, we've been teaching it for a long time. We have the people. We're bringing the three of them together and we're taking them into the market. Utilises our expertise internationally as well. So we have, said earlier on, we have offices around the globe. We can use those offices to help deliver, get people closer, so we can now segregate, aggregate where we need to. I started off by saying technology, earlier on saying technology is not a silver bullet. This point is so important. We don't focus on the metrics of how quickly, how fast. We focus on the business outcome. And we're seeing today, this is a conversation I've been having with a number of your BPO suppliers here. BPO suppliers charge by the number of heads, number of people that they have in a particular area. But they're now looking to change that paradigm and work towards outcomes, because the markets that you service, the Philippine service, are starting to react and say, I'm not sure how I want to work with BPO organisations. We're seeing that. If I think about Australia, for example, 2 years ago, 30% of all outsourcing was sent to the Philippines. Last year, that number was 13% in primary voice. So we already know, your businesses already know that there's a fall away in primary voice traffic into the Philippines. So being more efficient, being more productive is vitally important for these people. But part of that, when we go back and look at the organisations that are delivering that work offshore, they're looking to say, well, I want to understand my outcome, not just how many people you've got employed for. I want to understand how efficient, how productive they are. And doing that inside a continuous process improvement loop is so vital against the workforce optimisation. Working inside of Excel allows you to do some very raw numbers. Maybe a little bit of forecasting, scheduling can be done, but not done intelligently. What we talk about here is efficient staffing models, understanding the load that's really needed, understanding what you need, how many people you need. We always used to say, back in the day when we were bringing workforce management, an organisation that doesn't really use this stuff would get somewhere in the region of a 10% gain. Now, technology has become cheaper. Those numbers may still be true, they may be a little bit higher. Improve productivity. The better you train your people, the more efficient they become, the more knowledge that they retain, the longer they stay, the better service you deliver. So better productivity. This last one is key for me. Improve agent engagement. Many companies out there today saying it's the key to happy customer service. Very much the key to happy customer service. Let's just think about it as managing that work-life balance. Right? Nobody wants to be told you're working on the midnight, the graveyard shift, when they don't want to work the graveyard shift, especially if they find public transport hard to get. So allowing your staff, the business staff, allowing their staff to tell people when they want to work then being able to use that to build the schedules that fit means that you are going to have less attrition, more people stay, more people engaged, happier customers. That can be taken right to the bottom line. It's as simple as that. So, in delivering this service, you no longer need to go into the office, go to the chalkboard and say, when am I working? It gets delivered to your mobile phone. Because let's face it, it's an extension of every young person out there today. They all walk around with their mobile phones. In fact, half a dozen of them sitting here in front of me now, but they all walk around with their mobile phones. So why not deliver this information to them? And then allow them to say, I don't want to work that day. Who wants to work it for me? Empower the people, make them more engaged. Right? So, I started off by saying we're a technology company, and we are. But we're going one step further. We know the technology, we know the best in class. We've done this for 20 years. So we use that, we're underpinned by technology, we know how to drive it. We have the experts that train people on how to use it. So we know this stuff is fit for purpose, we know that we're using the right tools. Use our process and our people, we can improve decision making. And by doing that, using our capacity planning, understanding how you take their strategy and deliver on that through the contact center, there's the key right there. Capacity planning, not for today, but for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, understanding where they're going and knowing how they're going to get there. So many contact centers out there today don't know how to close that loop. It's what we do. Right? So, in marketing terms, quantum shift in thinking. In many ways it is. Breaking that paradigm. Delivering the right resources at the right time to the right people. It's what workforce management is all about. It's what we do. Smart scheduling. Making sure that people have access to that technology. They don't have to invest in either the technology or the process. They just need to focus on the business outcome. And that's what we deliver. Meaningful reporting, making sure that they've got what they need when they need it, got that capacity planning, and can really drive those outcomes. Mark? Some of the organisations, we've been around 20 years, we've been working with a lot of organisations. Most of them you'll see sitting and around the Australian, but you'll see some very big names here that are around the globe. We do work with organisations all over the world. So that kind of brings to an end what it is that we're doing. We are a technology company that in many ways been here for many years as a shared services and as a support provider around the globe. And kind of the light went on and said, rather than just try and help people and teach them what to do, time to do it for them. So taking technology and buying it as you need, now taking a service and buying it as you need, and delivering on that promise instantaneously, and that's where we're at. So with that, I'll hand back over to Mark.
Hello, good afternoon. We will open the floor.
In that same survey, Philippines was still the #1 choice of people outsourcing today. There's a huge move back to onshore. And part of that's because organizations are trying to work out what is the right CX path, CX customer experience. What's the right CX path? And they started off by offshoring everything. They didn't have control over it. So they started by trying to bring it all back. Now the costs are blowing out. So now they're trying to work out how they do this. Right? So that's part of what's causing this fluctuation. But I also said, in what you could arguably call the capital of, certainly in Asia, the capital of back office processing, BPO, in Asia, the world, if you're reporting it from where you sit, right? But why are you not focusing on those as much? when I go to conferences here, when I go to speak, when I go to talk to people, they're talking to me about primary voice contact, telephones. Yet, the number of people you have focused and working in the back office industry is enormous. 9 transactions, 9 different channels used on average in an Australian contact centre or an Australian organisation, sorry, not just contact centre, an Australian organisation, one of which is primary voice. So how do I see the Philippines? I see that they need to move towards and really play the back office card and play it very soon to improve what they do. How does call design play within that? Back office, front office, making companies more efficient, making them understand their productivity, helping them achieve that productivity. That's what we do. We do it when we get up in the morning, we do it when we go to sleep at night. It's what we do. So organisations want to get more productive, want to get more efficient. We're the place that they need to get to. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thanks.
Quick advert as well.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Conan Aldatis of ConanDaily.com.
Okay.
Sir, you mentioned earlier about the Philippines being...
Sean, not so.
Sean. I mean, sir? Yeah, Sir Jesse. Mentioned earlier about the Philippines being resistant to change and new technology, and you, Sean, mentioned about, you said you're impressed by how Filipino politicians could articulate the GDP to the masses. I'd like to ask, what would be the economic impact if Philippine companies get the services of call design for workforce management and optimization?
Okay, great question. Well, so if we assume that an organisation is going to have a number of calls inbound, if they don't analyse those properly, and they don't really truly understand what their need is. So if you go to a contact centre that doesn't understand or doesn't use workforce planning, you'll see they have moments of the day when they're really stressed, and they have moments of the day when they're a little bit more chilled. What our job is to say, well, what they typically do is they say, well, when we're really stressed, we need more people, so let's get more people. More people equals more cost. So what we do is we go in and we look at that load. And the first thing that we do when we look at that is try and work out what is the most efficient and effective shift pattern. So you have the least amount of people answering the calls at the time, but always to deliver on service. So number one, you've just dropped your cost. The next thing we want to do is make sure that you've got the right, so we set right people, right skill, right time, right place. Now we want to make sure that you've got the right skill. That means you've got to take people off the phone again now and go train them. When is the best time to do that? We'll answer that question for you. We'll tell you when the best time is. And when you're suddenly getting smashed because marketing organisation, or marketing part of the organisation suddenly thrust out a campaign and forgot to tell the people answering the calls, we can tell you which training to pull to make sure that you always meet your service level. And that's important. Why? Nobody wants to sit on the phone for 3 hours or 2 hours or 20 minutes. I'm impatient. But today's society, they become, if they do pick up the phone and call, they don't want to sit there for 10, 15, 20 minutes. Ask yourself, you want to be answered almost instantaneously, right? You're no different to the aged members of our society. Wasting time, right? But even if you send in an Instagram, a Facebook request, a tweet, send in an email, chat, online chat, becoming very, very important with the convergence of digital. You don't want to sit there and wait for somebody to come back. You want it to be instantaneous. So not all chatbots can answer you all your questions. So we need to make sure that whether it's a chatbot or whether it's a human, that service remains consistent across.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
when I speak to somebody from overseas, I'm not going to make it just about Filipino, it's about it might take me a bit longer to get that word no. And that's because in general, the culture is very much about accommodating. But it's sometimes, now, let's put that into terms of customer experience. Sometimes no is a very harsh word. And sometimes customers don't want your customers don't want you to say the word no, but in general, there's not a lot that needs to be changed. I'm being a little bit flippant with my response. There's not a lot that needs to be changed. Very analytical, very capable, very process driven, a little bit of breadth outside, but that's not a product of the culture, that's a product of how people utilize that culture. And I think organizations from overseas and organizations within the Philippines need to empower their staff more, and by empowering their staff more, they'll get better response. And I'll give you a classic example yet again. Not that I'm trying to sit here and be an advert, but that table at the back there, they have their processes, they have their things to work with it, but they also understand when they need to make decisions, and they make decisions and move away. And they do that as good as anybody else in my company, no matter where they sit.
So, along with that, sir, so you said that, yes, we are indeed the characteristics that we have. So, another question is that, what is the competitive edge that you see in Filipino employees that will need to empower? Because we believe that in your company, we need to highlight the strengths more than the weaknesses, right? So, what are the competitive edge that you see that in us that we need to be empowered? Because seen to it that still the employment rate is still high here in the Philippines, so we need to empower these employees, these job-seeking Filipino workers, so that they will able to get to the job they wanted. So what are the competitive edge that you see that we need to be empowered with?
Firstly, let me congratulate you for using the words competitive edge 3 or 4 times. I hope you all wrote that down. So I think what you're asking me, what is the competitive edge that companies should, how could they better use their Filipino workers by, for me it's engagement. All right? Go to some places, and I'm not going to say this is true across the board, but go to some places and it's all about block scheduling. You'll work here, you'll work till then, I'll tell you what you're doing, that's it. I'll do the thinking for you, just follow the script, those sorts of things. Started a minute ago by saying that you have very, very intelligent, very capable, skilled people. And whereas it's appropriate to have a process, always appropriate to have a process, it's one of the things that people come here for. Allowing people, engaging with people, and allowing them, empowering them to know how to use that process, and empowering them to really focus. I've been in many centres where people follow the process knowing full well that isn't what they should be doing. So allowing people to that little bit of latitude, and it needs to be a little bit of latitude, and then engaging with them and allowing them to work when they need to, so that you get people that want to be there, absolutely want to be there. Think about your own world, think about your own life. If I said to you, you've got to work every Sunday for the next 6 months, would you be happy? No. If I said to you, I've got slots on Sundays and I'm paying whatever it is, and you think, well, on that particular Sunday I'm not doing anything, I'm not doing it Saturday night, you might put your hand up, yes? Already we got somebody that's more willing to do something because they want to do it.
Right.
Yes.
And as human beings, when we want to do something, we do it better. Better equals more productive, more willing. And if you've got 2 organisations, I'm sorry to be picking on you here, but they've got 2 organisations, one that says, I'll tell you when you work, and another that says, I'll let you tell me when you want to work. Which one are you going to pick? The second one. So we're not saying give the keys to the inmates, as as the old saying goes. But what we are saying is there's a little bit of working together to get the right outcome. And you need some skill to be able to do that.